Mr. Faulkner, I have a question for you. I saw an ad on the TV the other day. It said, it was Jerry Sanders. He was talking, he said, yours, neighborhood fairness plan uses savings to repave streets, increase police patrols, and keep after-school programs open longer. Best, Kevin's plan begins in communities that have been neglected too long. My question to you is, what communities is he talking about?
We're talking about many, many communities, Scott. I mean, you can go at every council district of communities that have been neglected because of the bad decisions that this city council, previous mayors have made not investing in our infrastructure. You know, I'll use the word pension with my good friend, Mr. Aguirre, here tonight. I vividly remember when I was brought on, when I was elected in 2006, under investigation by the Securities Exchange Commission, no credit rating for the city of San Diego, frozen out of the capital market so you couldn't do infrastructure. Pensions that were not only underfunded, but benefits granted retroactively. That's all where we found ourselves in that situation. So we've had to make some very tough and difficult decisions that now allow us to start talking about, okay, where do we invest those dollars? I've talked about my neighborhood fairness plan, which Mayor Sanders is talking about as well. It says we're going to invest those dollars into our streets, into our sidewalks, and that's where I'm going to put my priority.
But you don't think one neighborhood has been neglected over more than another?
Oh, I think if you look
that was what was implied, I felt like, in that ad.
If you look at neighborhoods like in Barrio Logan, you look at neighborhoods in Claremont, you look at neighborhoods throughout the city that have not had the type of streets and sidewalks and infrastructure because the city wasn't doing it.
But it's a uniform neglect.
Oh, I think there were clearly some areas of the city that
Fletcher?
have more neglect, more so than others. David and I were talking about Barrio Logan. Myrtle Cole and I were recently talking about the infrastructure in District 4. That's why, unless you have a mayor that is going to hold true to pension reform and watching out after our tax dollars, Scott, you're not going to have that.
Yeah, but I mean, the council did make bad decisions, and Kevin, you were on that council for 7 years. Making those bad decisions. I mean,
which decision was that? Which decision was bad?
I'm going to tell you. We've gone from the 8th worst roads in America to the 4th worst roads in America. Yeah. There's been 37,000 911 calls, as reported by the Voice of San Diego, in the last 2 years alone that were not answered in time. And during that time frame, you can say there was no money, but you found hundreds of millions of dollars through commissions and task force and tax increases and other things to fund other things. And the communities that got left behind are primarily poor, lower-income communities of color. And that's true in response times, that's true in quality of streets, that's true in quality of sidewalks. I talked to a lady today, just to finish this point, to make this real, because when you say 37,000 911 calls, you're like, oh, okay, what does that mean? I talked to a lady today, 62-year-old grandmother who lives in Nestor. 2 weeks ago, she called 911 at 4:30 in the morning, because someone was trying to break into her house, rattling the cage, kicking the door, growling. She called 911. There were no units available. But a police officer did not get there until 7 a.m. because the number of officers has steadily declined every single year, Kevin. It's declined while you've been on the council because you chose other priorities, and it wasn't neighborhoods, and it wasn't.
I want to say something.
I think one question, though, that he asked, though, is what decision are you referring to specifically?
I mean, a perfect example, the decision to not have a focus on increasing police staffing, the decision to not have a focus on investing in infrastructure. I mean, those were decisions.
This is all coming from the guy who lifted the cap for downtown CCDC redevelopment to give more money to downtown. That's Nathan Fletcher, all right, instead of the other communities.
I want to ask Mr. Faulkner to respond.
I would just say, Scott, I don't know where Nathan's been the last 7 years. We've had to make some of these decisions. But it was very tough, and it was very difficult because money wasn't falling out of the sky.
But it did fall out of the sky.
But let me ask you,
$600 million for a convention center.
You said yourself, Mr. Faulkner, that the response times issue of inequity in certain neighborhoods, of how soon emergency vehicles get there, was unconscionable. What the report that demonstrated, though, came out a couple years ago.
And I'll tell you, Scott, some of the decisions that I made that I think my friend Mr. Fletcher disagrees with. I support pension reform. I haven't changed my mind. I support managed competition to give us dollars back into city services. I haven't changed my mind about that. We're going to continue to make those decisions so we have dollars to reinvest. And we weren't at that point several years ago. And I'm proud of my record. I'm not running away.
May I say this, though, Kevin? And you know, Kevin, I admire a great deal, but here's what the problem is.
And Mike, I admire you a great deal.
We haven't, Kevin, careful, Kevin. You are up in the polls. You don't want to be saying things like that. Careful. Okay.